I stepped off the work truck and headed for the front door of our rented place, toolbox clutched in my right hand, keys in my left. It was 2 weeks before our anniversary, and I'd stayed late at the garage swapping out a transmission on a '99 F-150. Wanted to surprise her with that new tool set I knew she'd been eyeing. I jiggled the handle and froze. The door was unlocked. Inside, I could hear voices. My heart pounded, chest tightening so fast I thought I might collapse. I blinked twice, shoved my toolbox down at my side, and crept forward. The bedroom door was cracked. I pushed it open an inch and saw them, her and the neighbor, up against the sheets. No shame, just annoyance when they spotted me. The neighbor's eyes went wide, Jessica's went flat. That instant, my world, everything I'd sweated for, crashed. My gut seized, a cold fire racing through my veins. I turned and walked out without a word, toolbox still in hand, my ribs aching from how hard I'd been breathing. That moment was the glimpse I needed. 6 years of us. 6 years of rent paid on time, late-night garage shifts. We're building a life. Lies, it all evaporated. I don't cry. I don't beg. I just trust my gut, and mine was screaming. I knew exactly what I was, done. No sobbing, no words, just the pressure in my temples, the sharp twist in my gut, the urge to strip every ounce of meaning out of that house and leave. I'd clocked in at 6:30 a.m. that Monday, traded my street clothes for grease streaked coveralls, and fired up the lift. Working as a mechanic at Pete's Auto. I wasn't rolling in cash, but I paid my share of bills and skipped the bar on Friday nights to save for something better. Jessica and I split rent evenly. The plan was straightforward: snag enough overtime hours to put down a deposit on a modest 3-bedroom. Both our parents thought it was time. She was 30, I was 34. Time to get serious, they said. Inside the shop, oil lamps flickered on the overhead beams. I'd been there long enough, 11 years since I was 16, saw every shady patch of pavement, and every beat-up Honda that rolled in. I knew the smell of failing brakes, the feel of a worn bearing seizing up under my palm. So when the neighbor, Mike, a 35-year-old widower who lived next door, pulled up in a clean Silverado one Friday, I figured he needed work. He'd lost a tire, needed a rotation and a patch. I didn't think twice. Figured I'd see him around the block. But the morning I caught them, it was a different game. There was no guilt on her face, only irritation that I was interrupting. That's when I understood my wife was looking for something I wasn't giving her. And that something wasn't love. I dropped the ball when I told her I'd take the late shift so we could save for a down payment. My fault? Partly. But watching her drift into his arms over the last 6 months. I recognized the pattern too late, but I recognized it. I didn't react. I didn't raise my voice. I collected my tools and walked. Outside, the air was thick with August heat, but I felt a coldness I couldn't shake. I slept on my buddy Mike's couch that night, no relation to the neighbor, just coincidence. Mike, my best friend since high school, offered without hesitation. He didn't ask questions, just tossed me a pillow. The next morning, I picked up my old beat-up sedan, had nothing but the registration in my name, thanks to Jessica's constant grip on the joint account, and went to work like nothing had changed. I figured if I acted normal, the panic in my stomach would go away. It didn't. By week's end, I had texts between Jessica and that neighbor, months' worth. She'd been playing me for a fool. That's when I realized this wasn't a one-night mistake. It was a series of deliberate choices. I saw how she fudged our dinner budgets, how the rent checks bounced when I was on overtime. Everything clicked into place. The canceled dates, the sudden business lunches. The excuses vanished when I asked her to talk about us. She was gone, long before I saw it. Then there was Amber, my 29-year-old sister. She'd been a single mom since 22, with 2 kids in tow. Our dad split when she was 12. I stepped up to help whenever I could, school supplies, fixing her car, covering rent when she lost work. That was the deal, family had each other's backs. Except for that call. When I finally shook the days, I picked up my phone and dialed her. She answered with a clipped, "Hey, bro." I confronted her. "You knew?" She sighed like I was interrupting and said, "Yeah, Jess fills me in. She said you never listen to what I need as a woman." I felt my jaw lock. I could taste iron in my mouth. All that work, to keep this family afloat, and she'd been trading loyalty for jewelry, fancy dinners, promises of a financially stable future from that neighbor. She'd been living off Jessica, posting selfies of them at steakhouse dinners, tagging each other in outfits. My own sister, grinning as she lined her own pockets. That's when I realized I was on my own. I hung up, blocked her number, and drove back to the garage, grip tight on the steering wheel, knuckles white. I moved into a studio 10 minutes from Pete's Auto, one room, a kitchenette, a bathroom. Rent was 30% of my paycheck, and the toilet backed up if you ran the shower too long. That first night, I lay on the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling, the smell of old cat piss making my sinuses flare. I remembered how easy it would have been to drown myself in resentment, but I didn't want that. Instead, I printed out a spreadsheet: monthly bills, grocery costs, overtime pay, savings. I needed numbers. I needed a plan. I started getting to work at 6 a.m., catching 2 buses to the garage, and stayed until after 7 p.m., wiping grease off my arms with shop rags until they were nearly ragged. I spent my half-hour lunch break watching YouTube tutorials on accounting basics, figuring out how to build a simple profit and loss statement for the shop. At night, I pounded protein bars and black coffee, logged into a community college portal, and drilled myself on bookkeeping for an hour. My eyes burned, but I was too wired to care. Weekends, I worked side gigs, changing oil on beat-up Fords for cash, swapping brake pads under porch lights and parking lots, hands black with grime. It wasn't officially sanctioned, but who cared? Every extra $100 went straight into a separate house fund folder. I started sharing spreadsheets with Mike, my unofficial accountability partner, and he'd text me things like, "Dude, you're outpacing 80% of auto students in the county. Keep it up." At night, I'd do push-ups and sit-ups on that lumpy mattress until my shoulders ached. The physical exhaustion felt good. It kept my mind from replaying Jessica's smirk or Amber's betrayal. I recognized the pattern. Staying busy would blunt the edge of self-pity. By month 6, Pete, my manager, called me into his cramped office. He'd watched me bust my ass. The first time he pulled me aside, I braced for a reprimand. "Kid, you need rest." But that afternoon, he slid a folder across the desk. "I've been reviewing our numbers," he said, eyes flicking down at my spreadsheet printouts. "You've identified 5 high-margin jobs we've overlooked. Our inventory's a mess. Pricing's arbitrary. Where'd you get this?" I shrugged. "Night classes, some free courses online." He nodded, leaning back in his old swivel chair, hands folded across his chest. "I've owned this place for 30 years. Never had someone show me a roadmap to better profits. You interested in more responsibility? My health shot, and I've been thinking about retirement. Might be time to pass the torch." My chest tightened so hard I thought I might black out. "I don't have money to buy you out," I said, keeping my voice level. "I'm living in a studio downtown, man. We'll figure it out," he said, waving his hand like it was nothing. "Payment plan. You'll run the show. I'll still be around until I'm out of here. But I'd rather sell to someone who gives a damn than some big chain." He might as well have handed me the keys to a new life. That night, I studied the shop's ledgers for 2 more hours, plotting out how I'd refinance that deal, how much I needed for a down payment. I sent the draft to a banker I'd met during a workshop, and by the next week, had preliminary approval for a small business loan. My entire body felt humming with possibility, a familiar tension that said this is the right move. In month 9, word got around town, Jessica's new fling, my neighbor, wasn't nearly as stable as he'd seemed. He'd run out of his second wife's savings on lottery tickets. They'd broken up 2 months after our divorce was final. Jessica posted a story about a fresh start, but it was halfway between boasting and desperation. The only people who liked it were people she didn't help, so the comment thread was a graveyard. Meanwhile, Amber quit her insurance job, the one she'd actually held before she thought she'd land a sugar daddy, and tried to lean on another guy for cash. He ended up ghosting her after she discovered he'd lied about his salary. Instantly, the fancy dinners and new clothes stopped. I heard all this through Mike's cousin, who was still in that circle. I didn't gloat, just nodded and stayed under the hood of a Chevy Cruze. It wasn't my victory, it was natural consequence. By month 11, Pete handed me a new contract. Owner by June 1st, with a payment plan over 5 years. It was steep. My portion of overhead payment plus mortgage costs on my future house meant I'd be living lean. But I was past caring. I scribbled my signature, feeling cold determination settle in my chest. I'd come from sleeping on a couch to owning a garage and commissioning a mortgage on a modest 3-bedroom. No landlord, no nonsense. 2 days before I was to close on the house, I was under the car bay replacing a leaky radiator when I felt my phone buzz. It was Amber's name flashing. I didn't pick up. I knew exactly what she wanted, another free ride. Then she showed up on my porch at midnight. I walked out into the faint halo of the porch light, arms crossed, smell of engine coolant on my coveralls. Her hair was tangled, clothes wrinkled, kids in tow, oversized duffel bags at her feet. Her mascara had run, she looked desperate. "Can I come in?" she said, voice high-pitched, eyes darting. I recognized the manipulation, guilt by association, with her 2 kids as shields. "What do you want now?" I kept my tone calm, even though my chest was pounding. She blinked back tears. "We got evicted. The landlord sold the building. We have nowhere else to go. Mom and Dad won't help." She stepped forward, big mistake. "Your house is empty most of the time, plenty of room." Her children's eyes were wide, clutching stuffed animals. My gut twisted. My heart thudded, but I breathed in, steady, this doesn't work. "No," I said flatly. She frowned, jaw dropping slightly. "But they'll be homeless." I lifted my chin. "Take them to Mom and Dad. It's not my problem." She scowled, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Mom and Dad said I should come here first." She started in on the puppy eyes, but I turned, unlocked the deadbolt behind me, and stepped aside. She scooped her kids up, made a half-sob noise, turned, and hustled out into the night. I shut the door without apology. 2 days later, my parents showed up unannounced. I was sitting on the edge of my new, empty couch, just unboxed, cardboard still on the floor. My cell rang. "Son, we need to talk." Their voices were familiar, false calm mixed with lodestones of guilt. I didn't answer. I set the phone down, grabbed a drill, and started installing a security camera. They walked in anyway, marched straight past the boxes. My mom said, "We're here to help Amber. You owe it to your family." I didn't pause. I kept screwing the camera bracket into the drywall. The drill bit into the plaster. Vibration rattled my fingers. My pulse thrummed. I felt the entire room hum with tension. I looked at them over my shoulder, face tight. "You ignored me when I needed help," I said, voice low but steady. "When I caught Jessica cheating, you told me to work it out. When I had nothing, no place to live, you didn't lift a finger. But now that I finally have something, you all want a piece of me again." My dad's face flushed. "You're being selfish." I held up a finger, cut him off. "Stop. I'm not your charity case. I fought my way here. If you want to help Amber, you'll take them in. Not me. End of story." Mom huffed as Dad took a step forward. "You're making a mistake. Leave," I said, dropping the drill and locking eyes with both of them. "Get out of my house before I call the police for trespassing." Dad's fist clenched, but Mom grabbed his arm. They backed away without another word. The drill fell to the ground with a soft clatter. My heart pounded, heat in my cheeks, but I felt sharp clarity. I'd drawn the line. I'd saved my own skin. I closed the door, locked it, and then set up the motion sensor on my phone. I knew where I stood now, protector of myself, only. That same night, around 10 p.m., I finished the last box, dishes in the kitchen. I was exhausted, hunger gnawing in my stomach, but a sense of relief washed over me as I stepped into the silence of my own home. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I checked caller ID, Jessica. My stomach flipped, part of me tensed up, part of me was absurdly curious. I answered on speaker, grilling pan still in hand. "We need to talk," she said, voice trembling. "I'm sorry." I set the pan on the counter, braced myself. "Talk about what? How you ruined 6 years of my life? Or how you crashed and burned after lying about your life to everyone?" She sniffled. "I lost my job. I'm living with my mom. She's about to kick me out. Her voice cracked. "I thought maybe we could work something out. I'll move in. Just until I find a place." I leaned against the counter, shoulders back, throat tight. "No. Not happening," she whimpered. "But what about us? You said you loved me." I closed my eyes, felt the ache in my chest, like a bruise that refused to heal. "You loved me when I paid for your dinners. When I swapped shifts so we could save. When I held you at 3 a.m. because your shit was falling apart. Then you used me until you were done and tossed me away like I was nothing. That's not love. That's convenience. So no, never again. Don't call me." I slammed the phone down, took a deep breath. Body felt drained, but I smiled a little inside. I was finally free of that anchor. Weeks passed. The garage changed hands at June 1st just as Pete had promised. I signed the final papers, cheeks flushed, hand trembling. The keys rattled in my palm and I felt a fire in my veins, something like pride. I walked out with the garage's nameplate in my sweaty grip and looked up at my brick building under a late afternoon sun. It was mine. No Peter, no corporate chain pulling my strings, just me and a bay full of lifts. I breathed in the oily air, tasted freedom. At home that night, I sat on the front porch of my modest 3-bedroom, cracked concrete steps, nothing fancy, but it was mine. My toolbox sat in the passenger seat, ready for tomorrow's work. I listened to the cicadas, felt the summer breeze ruffle my hair. My phone buzzed with voicemails I'd ignore from my parents and Amber, silent threats, guilt trips, everything they tried. They could keep their pity and their judgments. I dug out my old journal, first time in months, and wrote, "I'm here. I'm alive. I fought, I bled, I lost sleep, I crammed accounting formulas after 12-hour shifts. But I'm here." My hands were shaky, chest still a bit sore, but I felt something solid in my gut again. Jessica's social circle quietly checked out of her life. Word spread that she burned through her savings, bounced rent checks, ended up moving back home at her mother's. Her IG feed shrank from "living my best life" to half-empty posts about finding myself again. No one liked or commented anymore. That's a natural consequence. No grand revenge needed. Lies and selfishness catch up. Amber switched jobs 3 times in 6 months. No stability. She lived with her kids in a cramped 2-bedroom rental, biting her nails when rent was late. She texted me once, just once, asking for money. I didn't reply. Her social media was a string of "mom of 2 doing it all solo mom hustle." But every caption came off with a whiff of desperation. That's the fallout she earned by choosing quick gains over family loyalty. I get occasional texts from my niece or nephew, sent through Amber. "Uncle Matt, I miss you." My chest seizes when I read them. I know those kids are innocent, but every time I open that door, I lose ground. So I've set a boundary. I'll send birthday money as a gift on holidays, but I won't let them move in. They've got grandparents who can step up, or they'll figure it out. That's the tough love I owe them, because enabling Amber's crap would only prolong my own wound. I didn't cry in front of Jessica. I didn't beg Amber to come around. I worked my ass off, leaned on what few friends I had, and kept my head down. I recognized manipulation when I saw it, no pity for a cheater or a sister who picked fancy dinners over me. I trusted my judgment under pressure. If a woman betrays you once, she'll do it again. If a sister tosses you aside for cash, that's how she values loyalty. I protected my time, finances, and mental health by putting up walls and refusing to apologize for boundaries. That's self-preservation without guilt. Physically, I hit the gym on my new schedule, worked out twice a day when I could, just to feel in control. My hands still smell of oil sometimes when I breathe, but I sleep deeper now. My mind isn't a racetrack of betrayal. My bank account has line items for business expenses, mortgage, savings, and emergency fund. Numbers keep me grounded. I still remember the bite in my gut the night I opened that bedroom door. But that memory fuels me. I refuse to be a casualty of someone else's selfishness again. Now, when I see a family photo of Jessica or a social media post from Amber, my chest might ache for half a second, like a bruise that pops whenever I touch it, but then I shake it off. I'm not the guy who begged for scraps. I'm not the guy who exploded in rage. I'm not the doormat apologizing for existing. I'm the guy who did the hard work, burning the candle at both ends, who refused to play the victim script. I rebuilt from dirt, found leverage in my own skills, and turned this place into something I own, something none of them can take away. So here I am, 34, owning an auto shop, a house with a porch where I can breathe, a future I control. No regrets. That's how I gave them an ending they never saw coming.